I write plays about lesbians and survivors of sexual abuse, and for a long time I thought this was the reason why my work was so censored. The real reason is the visibility of the butch, or the so-called masculine woman, in my plays. In 1921, the House of Lords debated the best way to punish lesbianism. Death and incarceration in a lunatic asylum had already been discussed. They resolved to, quote, leave them entirely alone, not notice them, not advertise them. That is the best method. These cases are self-exterminating, end quote. Unfortunately, with regards to the butch, this method has been adopted by the popular culture, even lesbian pop culture. The butch fails to see herself represented in the media, and she experiences tremendous pressure to alter her identity or else self-exterminate. With the high visibility of gay men and feminine lesbians, why this near-total whiteout of the butch in mainstream media? Because the butch is the cultural equivalent of the universal solvent. She will dissolve every patriarchal narrative that attempts to contain her. The butch, even if she is just a walk-on, will deconstruct every gender role in sight, taking down the narrative. She is living proof that qualities traditionally considered masculine are not exclusive to men, destroying the foundation of male privilege and calling into question the tenets of heterosexual desire. The precedents were set in the early days of television. The visible butch could be a frustrated, unattractive spinster and a laughingstock, typified by Jane Hathaway of the Beverly Hillbillies and her hopeless crush on the Neanderthal Jethro Clampett. The butch can be gotten rid of. Sheila Kuhl, who played Zelda on The Dobie Gillis Show, was offered her own series, until the producers discovered that she was a feral butch. The show was canceled and Sheila went on to serve 8 years in the California Senate and 6 in the Assembly. 30 years later, Ellen DeGeneres saw her sitcom canceled for the same reason. The butch can be visible as a solo talk show host or as a news commentator, but never featured in a narrative about relationships, and her appearance must always be sexually colonized. Censoring the butch conflates being female with silly clothing, submissive behavior, and pleasing men. Janis Joplin was a butch, and for those who doubt it, she was voted ugliest man on campus by the frat boys at UTexas Austin. Janis dealt with her taboo butchness by wild overcompensation, feather boas, beads, bangles, lace, and public displays of heterosex before her final act of self-extermination. The Butch Visibility Project makes visible what is missing in the culture. The project identifies my plays with leading butch roles, promoting them specifically as vehicles for butch performers. The pious and otherworldly St. Joan was historically a cross-dressing working-class butch with a smart mouth. She was burned at the stake for the crime of assuming male prerogatives, and the mob demanded to inspect her genitals after her body was taken down. Calamity Jane was so butch she could pass in the U.S. Cavalry. She got herself written into history by promoting the fiction that she had been Wild Bill Hickok's common-law wife. And you know what? It actually worked. Charlotte Cushman was the greatest English-speaking actor on 2 continents for 4 decades. The secret of her unprecedented success? She was fat, butch, and openly lesbian. Today, she has been written out of history because she was fat, butch, and openly lesbian. The Parmigiani Belle is about Maine's first licensed hunting guide, Cornelia Crosby. Who else but a major butch could, without a breath of scandal, disappear into the woods for weeks at a time with some of the most socially prominent married men in the United States? Ugly Ducklings is a play about a scapegoated butch counselor at a girls' summer camp and a deeply troubled butch camper. The play resolves with an intercepted child suicide. Too often in real life, these child suicides go unintercepted. Harriet Tubman's butch identity is usually erased. She was so butch, her enslaver yoked her to a plow and raced her against a team of mules for money. During the Civil War, she returned to the South to fight with the Union Army, participating in the killing of her former enslavers. My current project is a full-book musical about athlete Babe Didrikson, who has been called the greatest athlete who ever lived. Babe's butchness and her girlfriend were both written out of history, and it has proven a challenge to write them back in. I wasted 3 decades of my life trying to be female according to the dictates of the culture. Something like the Butch Visibility Project could have prevented this stupid dissipation of purpose and painful travesty of personhood. It is my hope that audiences will support this initiative by noticing what they have been missing and by asking the hard question, would this play, this film, this book, would my life make sense in the presence of the visible butch?